Rose Namajunas and Weili Zhang. Now, Rose Namajunas might be one of my favorite fighters of all time. So I'm going to talk not very much in this because I'm insanely biased. But I will open it up. Robbie and Ian, what do you think about this fight? How do you think it goes?
Well, the one thing I'd say is I don't think that first fight was very telling in any way, really. It wasn't long enough. It wasn't like Rose was setting up this specific technical fight. She might be working on it hard in training camp, but it's not like she was obviously setting it up to a huge degree within, what was it, a minute and 18 seconds? The first fight was not long enough to tell. I think anyone's opinion of this probably shouldn't have changed from who they thought was going to win the first time round.
My opinion has changed, but go on, Ian.
Oh,
mine has a little bit, because what I was kind of caught up on in the first fight was what mentality that Rose Namajunas was going to bring into the fight. And I was very high, and I still am very high on Zhang Weili as a fighter. I think she's an absolutely phenomenal fighter. But after picking Zhang Weili in that first fight, when I seen Rose standing in that octagon in that first fight, just mouthing the words, "I am the best, I am the best, I'm the best," I knew at that stage that she was on, and Tug Rose was in that cage, and she was mentally ready. So the fruits of that labor was shown in that first fight when she comes in and she is on. She is one of the most dangerous fighters in the world, but she always battled with those demons, and she seems to have a much better grasp on them now. And I do kind of agree with Robbie in what he said, is that I feel that we are going to see the fight this time around that we were expecting to see in the first fight. And I would feel that this fight will go a lot. I would think that would go a lot longer, but then again, you just don't know. You've got two women here that carry some big power. But like, if you're Zhang Weili, you're going to be playing it safe, I feel, in the opening stages of this fight again, given what happened in the first fight. Like, are you going to be wanting to rush in and leave yourself open and get counter-struck? We don't know how Zhang Weili or how she's going to react from being knocked out like that. You know, she hasn't suffered a knockout like that ever, I don't think. And, you know, fighters react differently after it. You know, we've seen it time and time again. So if I'm Zhang Weili and I'm her team coming into this fight, I am going to be looking to try and bring Rose into deep waters. Going to try and slowly push the pace in this fight. Before that last fight, we've seen Rose Namajunas go up against Jessica Andrade, where she did kind of tire out a little bit. Now, Andrade is a wrestler, and there was a lot of grappling initiated in that fight, which does drain the gas tank, like we talked about with Covington and Usman as well. But I'm thinking that maybe Rose might gas out, maybe not gas out, but tire out or be less explosive in rounds 4 or 5. Maybe a little bit of pop might come off her strikes as well. So, you know, I'm just looking at it from Zhang Weili's kind of perspective, is that, do I want to throw myself right into the firing line in the early stages of this fight? Or do I want to play the long game and slowly turn up the pressure and make this into a 5-round war? And if it turns into a 5-round war, anything could happen and anybody could take this fight. And I'm really, really, really looking forward to watching this. I mean, this is one of the highlights on the card for me, for sure.
I think you've highlighted there all of the really important points. However, we know that Rose, how do I put this the best way? You don't want Rose to start a rhythm, right? We saw in the first round against Jessica Andrade, if you allow Rose to move her feet and land her shots, it's it's basically on Rose's choice. If Rose makes a mistake or her gas tank falters, that you come back into the fight. It is so hard to turn that tide. Now, in the first fight, we did see Zhang Weili land a few shots, and you could tell very early the power in just straight shots, and just your 50%, 60% shot power is very different. Weili Zhang packs big power, right?
And that
The
will
question-
stand to her too if the fight
Yes.
goes,
Yes.
if we're talking about decisions here, we're talking about immediately impactful strikes that will score in this fight. And
Yes.
those will definitely come more from Zhang Weili than they will from Rose Namajunas.
I agree. I think if we're going to a decision, I'm picking Rose Namajunas. If we're going for a finish, I think I'm picking Zhang Weili.
Ooh.
I see where you're coming from. There's one other thing I wanted to check. Was this last fight the one where Zhang Weili's camp was absolutely fucked?
Yes.
Not this time round, is it?
No. I don't know about the last fight with Rose Namajunas, but the one before that against Johanna, she had to change her camp on four
that's
occasions.
Right.
Was it that one?
The last one, the biggest thing with Zhang Weili that she has said after the fight was a little bit of shit talk that Rose got to her a little bit, and also the fact that she was booed by the whole stadium, she said played an effect on her as well. So, I mean, those are red flags too, if you ask me. It's like, how strong is she mentally?
Red flags.
So, yeah,
Jesus Christ.
So, I mean, that's another little factor. Like, we simply don't know because we didn't see enough of that first fight, and we don't know going into this, was Zhang Weili just caught, or was she leaving herself open for something, or did Rose Namajunas kind of expose her in certain ways on the feet? Now, we'll probably find out a little bit more of those answers coming into the second fight here, but I'm very curious as to hearing what Harry has to say in regards to, I would be thinking along the other lines that I would be Rose Namajunas that would be looking to get a finish early, and if it was to go to a decision, I think it would probably lean towards Zhang Weili, being based off the fact that she throws heavy strikes and they are very impactful strikes, nearly almost of all of her shots that she throws.
So I think Rose, if Zhang Weili is going to come in and say, I'm going to bide my time a little bit, take her into deep waters, reserve my gas tank, and try and put the pressure on late. If you are willing to give up a round or two to Rose, the steam that she will build will take rounds away from you. If you're banking on Rose, and this is why I think if we're looking at a finish, it'll be Zhang Weili.
I don't mean, just to be the devil's advocate on that a little bit, she did win rounds 1 and 2 against Jessica Andrade and then kind of fade away in round 3.
This is my point, right? So if I'm Rose Namajunas, I'm thinking all I really need to do is win 3 rounds here, right? If I know that I can't trust my gas tank to go 5 hard 5s at the same pace I put in the first, I just need to win 3. And if I can win 3, I can do my best to coast. I'll grapple, I'll play possum, whatever, and I'll grind my way out to a 3-2, right? Well, if Zhang Weili comes in here and is like, well, I'm going to put my eggs in the same basket, I'm going to try and finish you late when you tire. Well, you're essentially giving Rose those first 3 rounds, right? Now, where I see this is, this is why I think Zhang may finish late, is Rose was getting pieced up against Andrade in that 3rd round, right? Pieced up. You don't want to be letting Zhang Weili hit you with the same ferocity in the same place. Now, the other question here is about mentality. And I actually think way more than technically, I think this fight is a fight of brain. Can Rose stay thug Rose for 5 rounds? How does Zhang Weili cope if she drops 3 rounds and has to pull out a finish? How do those mentalities blend together? Now, I don't think we can question Zhang Weili's toughness or heart. We all watched that Joanna and Jacek fight, right? One of the fights of all time. Both ladies were put through absolute hell. However, Rose Namajunas can hit way harder than Joanna and Jacek. So if it's like, I don't know. This is such a tough fight to call for me personally.
It's crazy to call. I think for me too. I mean, it's such a hard one to call because we just didn't see enough in the first fight. Like we're we're kind of talking about it in similar enough fashion as what we did talk about in the first fight, because we were
100%.
on here talking about it, and there just was there's still so many questions that have gone unanswered. So that's what makes me excited about watching this rematch. And I think another factor that may come into account is that nobody is talking too much about the underrated grappling skills of Rose Namajunas, which are phenomenal as well. She's an amazing grappler, and maybe that was in her game plan too. She might want to initiate some grappling herself against Zhang Weili. We don't know that. We didn't get to see that fight play out as much as we would have liked it the first time. So there's a bunch of different factors coming into this fight, and it's a phenomenal matchup. It's going to be a barn burner, I think, if it goes 5 rounds, and it definitely would be one of the favorites for fight of the nights if it goes all the way as well.
Just one thing as well. Rose Namajunas has just turned 29. 29.
Crazy.
I mean, Jesus.
And
anyway,
I think most of her fights are title fights as well, if we're not mistaken. Hey,
Yeah,
a lot of them. Yeah, a lot of them.
It must be like one of the highest proportions.
So she debuted again. Well, she did the Ultimate Fighter, right? Whatever. Then she fought Angela Hill, non-title fight. Van Zandt, non-title fight. Torres, non-title fight. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, non-title fight. Michelle Waterson, non-title fight. Then she fought Joanna Jędrzejczyk for the title. Then she rematched Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Then she lost to Andrade in a title fight. Then she fought Andrade non-title fight. And now she's fighting. She's knocked out Weili Zhang title fight, and now it's title fight again. Jesus. And then if we're not talking about Invicta as well, because there's fucking bouts in there and all. So yeah, look, let's move to picks, right? Because we could talk, and then I'll give my justification for my pick, and that'll be my last bit. But Robbie, do you want to go first on a pick?
You know what? I really love Rose, but I think I'm picking Weili Zhang. Or Zhang Weili. Still confused about which way around those names go.
Yeah.
No one can make up their mind. Yeah, glory to communism. I think it's going to be the red flag.
So,
late stoppage as well.
Ian? We've lost Ian. So
it was the talk of communism has struck fear into his heart.
Yeah, it's when he said red flags that China have just destroyed his internet connection. I am going to pick Rose Namajunas via 4th round submission. The reason why I pick that is because when I look at the styles as styles, Zhang Weili is a very front foot heavy, Muay Thai, plod forward, land big shots type of fighter, right? And the reason you see a big, beautiful war like you did against Joanna Jędrzejczyk is Joanna Jędrzejczyk is a similar sort of fighter. Muay Thai based, very heavy on her teeps and her straight shots and whatever, right? Rose Namajunas is not that. Look at the way that Namajunas knocked out Jędrzejczyk. Beautiful lateral step and a left hook right behind the guard. Beautiful. Fantastic. One of the cleanest left hooks you'll see. I feel as though the smart thing for Zhang Weili to do here would be to come in and try and bull rush her in the first round. Try and push Rose Namajunas to the edge of her mental capacity early. I don't think she will do that. I think that she's going to come in and be like, right, I got caught really early in this first round. Let me just hang out, see how it goes, play it by ear, and ease my way into the fight. You don't want to do that against Rose Namajunas. If Rose Namajunas, as I've already said, sets the pace, gets her footwork going and lands her shots, you have a serious tide to turn. So for me, I will go Rose Namajunas late sub. But the reason why I'll go late sub is I think if Zhang Weili does turn up the pace, you will see Rose lean on her grappling. And I don't think the grappling is anywhere near close in terms of its skill set. So I'll take Rose Namajunas via late submission. Ian, what's your pick?
Yeah, apologies. I lost connection there for a second. My prediction for this fight, and I mean, it's a toss-up for me on who's going to win. I think that my pick would be Zhang Weili to win by decision.
Interesting.
Because I think that she will kind of turn up the pace as the fight goes on. And she will probably be landing the more impactful strikes throughout the fight, which is probably going to give her the nod on the judges' scorecards if it goes that way. And that's a big if we see the final bell.
For the first time ever, I believe, we've all picked different ways this fight could go.
Yeah, it just shows you, right?
And I apologize, Robbie. I missed your pick. What was your pick again? Just
He loves communism.
Yes, glory to communism. I think Zhang Weili will finish her quite late. I think, though, out of just about any of the main or co-main events that we've had for a long time, this is the one that's most uncertain about how it's going to go. I think that plays through in how we've all gone different ways with the picks.
And I just want to wrap something up slightly before we close. Ian, in Rose Namajunas' UFC tenure, she has only fought twice outside of main event or co-main event.
Wow, yeah, that was something like the stat I was thinking of as well. So that's absolutely crazy. So
yeah, so she debuted against Carla Esparza, main event. She then fought Angela Hill on the prelims. Paige Van Zandt, main event. Tisha Torres, co-main. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, co-main. Michelle Watson, co-main. Joanna Jacek, main. That was the only other one. Main card, right? That was her first knockout. But that was the third fight because it was on UFC 217, right? Then Joanna Jacek rematch, co-main. Andrade, main event. Jessica Andrade again. And then Weili Zhang, co-main. Like, that is insane.
Ridiculous.
Insane.
And still only 29 years of age and still probably going to be coming into her prime over the next couple of years as well. So, I mean, we better get used to seeing Rose Namajunas at the top of the 115-pound division. Whether she wins this fight, whether she loses it, she's going to be thereabouts anyway.
I agree. I mean, just to close this out, if Rose loses this fight, they obviously do the third, right? Because there's nobody else there.
Yeah,
Carla that's the one thing. Yeah.
Right.
That's it. But like, we're definitely going to see a trilogy here, and poor Carla Esparza is probably going to be left out in the cold. And if Rose Namajunas gets the job done, it'll probably bode well for Esparza, having fought and beaten Rose Namajunas already. So she's waiting in the wings. But I think that if you're Carla Esparza, you're hoping for a Rose Namajunas win here and not a Zhang Weili.
For sure.